minute or so for everybody to get logged back in after our little reboot of the meeting. And again, grateful to everyone for your patience. Ain't technology grand? It's our best friend and sometimes our worst enemy, but we'll all get through it together. And the key is to be able to communicate and hear from one another in a way that's still safe with the social distancing we need to sustain.
And we do want to leave our public commenter in the waiting room until...
Yes, please.
Yes, gotcha. All right. I am now going to mute myself, and if you need anything, I'll be listening, but otherwise I'm going to butt out.
Okay. The other thing I mentioned, Dustin, if they're in the waiting room to be pulled in, we do need to have April Marchuk and David Glassman join us. Even though they're not voting members of the committee, President Glassman is addressing the committee at some point as one of our agenda items, and April's helping to staff the committee. So,
okay, Dr. Glassman, I admitted him. It still says he's joining, so okay. I'm not
good. Oh, there he is. Okay, very good. Well, we certainly have the quorum necessary for the committee meeting. So as the convener of the Eastern Illinois University Naming Committee, I'd like to call our meeting to order. Again, now that we're under broadcast, I want to extend some gratitude to some folks who have been instrumental in getting this organized, not the least of which is our colleague Dustin White in IT. Thank you to him for all of his assistance and the technical needs to set this up in a way that we can meet remotely and also be able to share it with an interested public. So thank you, Dustin. Thank you to my executive assistant, April Marchuk, for her work in advance of the meeting and identifying calendar dates and communicating with committee members. And then certainly want to make sure that I extend my gratitude to all of you as committee members for your willingness and your spirit of collegiality to be a part of this group and to help us discuss and tackle and work through important questions for the university related to naming opportunities and the naming of buildings and facilities at EIU. With that, I thought it'd be useful to just have each person introduce themselves and share their role on the campus, and I'll use the introductions as our way to take roll call for the meeting. So I'll take note of people's attendance as we go around, and I'll just call on people based on a list that I wrote down coming into the meeting. So Don Holly, would you mind going first?
Yeah, Don Holly, Chair of Faculty Senate.
Thank you, Don. Claudia Jansen-Daney.
And I needed to unmute myself. So I'll say this again. Claudia Daney, I'm the chair of the Council on Academic Affairs.
Thank you, Claudia. Angie Campbell.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Angie, and I'm a member of Staff Senate and chair of Civil Service Council.
Great, thank you, Angie. Noor Kamasani.
Hi, everybody. I'm Noor Kamisani. I'm the Student Government Student Body President.
Thank you, Noor. Stacey Elder.
Hi, Stacey Elder, Chair of Council of Chairs.
Thank you. Mona Davenport.
Hi, I'm Mona Davenport, the Executive Director of the Office of Inclusion and Academic Engagement.
Great, thank you, Mona. One other member of the committee, Dr. Carlos Amaya, could not join us today due to a conflict with a course that he is the instructor for. And we will make absolutely certain that we can include him in future meetings because it'll be very important to have feedback of all the members of the committee. He and I have discussed a way to have me update him on the proceedings from today, and he'll obviously have access to the recording of the meeting. My name is Ken Wetstein. I'm the Vice President for University Advancement, and in that role, I serve as the convener for this group. Eventually, this group will choose a chair, and the chair will facilitate most of the majority of the activity of the meetings going forward after today's. And I'll serve in a staffing role along with my executive assistant, April Marchik, who I think is trying to get logged into the meeting but isn't in yet. And her and I will support the committee with the logistical needs, meeting setups, communications, document prep, those kind of things. And then also in attendance is President David Glassman. He's going to be speaking to our group as part of our agenda here in just a few moments. So thank you, President Glassman, for joining us. Next on the agenda is an item that's titled Open Meeting Act Requirements. I just thought it would be important to brief members of the committee on some of the basics of the Open Meeting Act, and some of the requirements that places on us as we do the university's work on behalf of the university in this committee. Some of those requirements you're already noticing. One is that we're live streaming this meeting via YouTube, which allows then for the public to be able to see our work, and that keeps the meeting open in regards to the Open Meetings Act. Obviously, if we were meeting in person, just our meeting room would be open to the public to participate. But when we meet in this format, to be in concordance with state law, we would need to make sure that there's a way for the public to be able to see and hear the activities of the committee if they choose to do so. In addition to that, we're making a recording of the meeting, and that will be something that we'll hold in record available for people to listen to through a link on the university's website for a minimum of at least 18 months going forward from the date of this meeting. But maybe what's more important for us to talk about as a committee is that the intention of the Open Meetings Act is to make sure that the public's business is done in public. And to that end, this committee is, as a voting group, is a group of 7. And that means that anytime that 4 of you are in together, if you happen to be having any kind of substantive discussion, or if you make any kind of decision and it's not happening in an open meeting format, we've violated the spirit of that act. It's important that the work happens in the context of these meetings. And so I mentioned that only because in the age of technology, it sometimes can be easy for us to toss ideas back and forth to each other through emails or through other format. And we just need to make sure that we keep our deliberations, our substantive deliberations, and any official decisions of this committee, we keep them in the context of settings where they can be open to the public, and honor the spirit and the rule of the law there. And so I think, checking my notes, those were the big things I wanted to make sure we covered. And I'm sure that we'll all be really good at holding each other accountable to that, and doing all of this in a framework where the public can both see and hear what we're doing, and also through the options for public comment can speak into it at various points in the process. And we do have on the agenda public comment later, and we have one member, one individual from the community who's asked for the opportunity to address the committee on the topic. So I think with that, maybe, are there any questions about Open Meeting Act issues? I don't purport to be an attorney. I've consulted briefly with counsel on some of the higher points to make sure we are all on the same page as we start, but any questions about any of that? Okay, I'm seeing nobody unmuting or gesticulating wildly. We'll move to the next agenda item, and that is the charge to the committee from President Glassman. President Glassman, I'll give you the floor.
I think I'm off mute now, if that's correct. And before I get started, just want to say thank you for everybody who is serving on the committee, and it's an important committee that we activate, not at all times. We generally activate when a various naming opportunity or a discussion about a naming opportunity is taking place. In fact, you're going to be talking about one in the Doudna, the Hild Gallery, potential name later on during the course of this meeting. And on the agenda where it talks about the charge of the committee from President Glassman, really that charge is part of the IGP of what the University Naming Committee is all about and what their authority is and their recommendations, how they're developed and how they're provided. So really what I'm going to talk to you about today is the issue over Douglas Hall and that charge, if you will, or what I'm asking the University Naming Committee to do relative to that decision that was made essentially by the President's Council to bring to the University Naming Committee. And we'll let it move forward there. So I wrote down a few notes and again, thank you for participating on the committee. I appreciate that. But here's a few notes that I've written down relative to this debate that's taken place in the past, and we're going to have you look at once again. Over the past decade, EIU's University Naming Committee has twice taken on the task of reviewing the naming of Douglas Hall, which was named in concert with Lincoln Hall to recognize the fourth debate of the historically significant debates on the issue of slavery by Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas. The debate has added local significance as it occurred on the Coles County Fairgrounds, just a couple of miles from Eastern's campus. There is no doubt that Stephen Douglas was a racist and an ardent supporter of slavery, and there is no doubt that the naming of Douglas Hall on EIU's campus was never intended to have commemorated his racist ideology. The naming on our campus was solely to commemorate a major historical debate that dealt with the national divisive issue of slavery in the 1850s and its impact on the eventual passing of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution under the presidency of Abraham Lincoln in 1865. In the previous reviews by the University Naming Committee, it was recommended that the name of Douglas Hall be retained due to its original naming intent of recognizing the historical debate in Coles County. In addition, it was recommended that the purpose of the naming should be explained and the story of the debate be publicly told and displayed for educational purposes. That display is prominent in Stevenson Hall. Nevertheless, the question of having any building on campus with the name of an ardent racist and pro-slavery proponent is personally troubling for many in the EIU community. To that end, I'm asking that the University Naming Committee to convene once again and review the name of Douglas Hall for its appropriateness at Eastern Illinois University. The difficulty in your charge is that there are very legitimate positions on both sides of this question, and immense passion by those that feel that the name should be changed and those that feel that the commemoration of the fourth debate between Douglas and Lincoln holds strong historical significance to the ending of slavery in the 13th Amendment, as well as its significance to the city of Charleston, Illinois, and Coles County. I'm asking the University Naming Committee to unbiasedly explore the question as to the appropriateness of a name change of Douglas Hall by first seeking input from several constituency groups that may include current and past faculty, current students and alumni, EIU staff members, Charleston and Coles County community members, RSO organizations, the EIU Student Government Senate, among others. Second, to analyze and thoughtfully and comprehensively review and discuss the data collected from these constituency groups. And third, derive a recommendation from the University Naming Committee towards the question of continuing the hall to retain the name of Douglas, changing the name of Douglas Hall, or that the committee could not reach a consensus. Please remember that the University Naming Committee does not have the authority to make a decision on this question. only a recommendation to the university president. Similarly, the university president does not have the authority to name or change the name of any university building, room, or structure, but does have the ability to provide a recommendation to the EIU Board of Trustees. The decision to name or rename a campus building or other physical space is the sole discretion and authority of the EIU Board of Trustees. Finally, the charge of the committee is fully on the question of whether to retain the name of Douglas Hall or recommend that the name be changed. It does not include a review, discussion, or recommendation at this time of any substitute name should the recommendation of the committee be forwarded in support of a name change. So again, and that's what I have written down as my notes. Again, the task at hand is to once again reevaluate whether or not the Douglas Hall name on a building at EIU is appropriate for us, knowing the issue of why it was originally named that, the issue of feelings of people on both sides of the question, and whether the committee feels that is a recommendation to retain the name, essentially that the name should be changed, or that there's no consensus. The group cannot come to a uniform decision on this question, and that would be your recommendation after reviewing all of the information that you have and that you've thoroughly discussed. Again, difficult question, but certainly one that I believe, given the number of individuals that have reached out to me concerning the name itself as being one that they believe does not fit this university's mission and vision, and to provide a fair and deliberate discussion of the appropriateness of the name. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have related to it. And I believe that we should have some kind of a timeline set on this. I'd like to get your input on that because it does involve your time. It involves reaching out to constituencies and hearing from them and organizing that and so on. And so I'm wondering if something relative to March would be reasonable for you, or if you feel that it could be done sooner than that, or that you would like to have the month of April as well. I do believe that we need to have a decision or a recommendation rather on this by the end of this school year, and probably sooner the better. But I certainly want you to have the ability to do what you feel is best, and having all the information you need to make a recommendation. Is there any thoughts on that, or we can leave that for another time to put kind of an end date on this?
Feel free to unmute and ask your question if anybody has questions. Stacey?
I feel like there's something that I should bring before the committee, as this is an open meeting. The history department, my department, of which I am chair, this summer sent a memo to President Glassman recommending changing the name. And so if that compromises me as a member of the committee, I feel like everybody should know this at the beginning.
I think that's a good point to raise, Stacey, and the short answer is, short of you personally recusing yourself, I think it would be a good item to discuss, particularly in light of the president's charge that suggested that we unbiasedly explore this question. All of us will come into this, I think, with thoughts, ideas, or opinions, but the charge indicates that can you also be unbiased, knowing what you're also bringing to the table, and that probably is going to have to be what will reign in making a decision about that. But I think it's great for you to highlight that. Any other thoughts or any other items that people want to ask about or bring up? In response to the issue of timing that you raised, President Glassman, I think it's probably prudent to say until the committee can have a meeting or two under their belts and get a sense of the scope of what they want to accomplish. It's hard to answer for sure, but it sounds like as long as we can extend into March or early April if we have to, that seems like it's a reasonable amount of time to get there, particularly since before you said that today, I thought we might have to try to get something together by January. So that actually made me feel a little more comfortable.
January would not be bad.
Good. Okay. Well, we can work with that too. I think it's gonna, I think you've made it clear that connecting with all of the various constituencies is going to be an important part of our data gathering, and that we want to make sure we leave plenty of time to do that well, to do it correctly.
And ever since this was announced at the Board of Trustees meeting that I was going to call upon the university naming committee to re-review this question, I have received, as you can imagine, comments and thoughts from individuals on both sides of this question, as well as information from the previous reviews of this. And I will share anything that I receive over to the committee for your review. And so you'll have those pieces of data as well.
And I actually think that sets a great example for all of the active participants in the committee, that folks will know that each of us is involved with this committee in some way or to some degree. And as you receive feedback, we'll need to have some platform by which we can share that. And correct me if I'm wrong, President Glassman, but that kind of content doesn't fall under our open meetings expectations. That informal data gathering, the information that comes in, it's the substantive discussions that would be subject to open meeting.
That would be something for a question to be asked to general counsel.
I'll double check. I just don't want, I want to have the room for the people who make comments into this process. If they have any expectation of anonymity, what anonymity, if any, we can provide them. And obviously there's not as much anonymity for us to interact as a group. We'll just make sure that we're doing this appropriately.
Yeah, I believe in your data collection, you'll be doing aggregate data and reading comments, qualitative. I don't know what kind of survey or how you'll be reaching out to others. But anything that I send you from emails or letters or things like that come to me, absolutely the names would be redacted from that. There should be anonymity, and people should feel free to discuss their opinions openly. Yeah. And with confidentiality.
Yeah, we'll just make sure that we control for that, but also control for making sure we're following the rules and following the law. So we'll continue to consult with counsel to make sure we do everything appropriate.
Very good. Any other questions for me? Well, then I'm going to mute myself and listen to a little bit of your meeting, and then I'll have to probably exit before you're through. But once again, thank you for your service on the committee. This question, obviously has been a very, very difficult one for our university to have persisted for 10 years. And I absolutely appreciate your participation.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Glassman, and appreciate you sharing your perspective and your charge with the committee. That's going to be very helpful to shape their work. Our next agenda item is to discuss committee procedures and processes. I placed this on the agenda for this first meeting just to maybe member check with the folks that are going to be virtually around this table about how to operationalize the work of the committee. At what frequency should we meet? And I know we have a agenda item later about that. In general, we should try to run the meetings with adherence to the basic Robert's Rules of Orders. In regards to official actions, would require motions and seconds and opportunities for discussion. I think that a lot of our discussions will be less formal and will probably be satisfied by an expectation of reaching consensus and testing for consensus before we move forward with choices of action. But there will be moments throughout the committee where we will have to make formal motions, receive formal seconds on those, and then provide appropriate discussion and appropriate procedural considerations for the record. And hopefully that you guys will have a level of comfort between shifting gears between the rolled up your sleeves informal work of a committee and the occasional down to basics and following exact proper procedure. And I think all of you have done enough committee work that you can recognize when we have to be in official parliamentary mode and when we can be more in informal consensus seeking and discussion and back and forth. But any thoughts about committee procedures and processes to that extent, maybe excluding anything about meeting frequency or the schedule of meetings? Okay, I'd like to move into the next item on the agenda, which would be the selection of a chair for the committee. It should not fall to me to chair the committee. It's important for me in my role as the Vice President for University Advancement. I work with donors. I work with sometimes people who have advocacy speaking into the naming process. And so that puts an unusual conflict on me if I'm both chairing this committee and yet bringing requests for its consideration. And so it's better if I serve as a convener and helping to staff the committee. And so I think at this time, I'd like to open the floor if anyone would like to either themselves express interest in serving as a chair or to recommend a colleague on the committee to serve as a chair. Wish we had that cricket sound effect.
I'd like to nominate Angela Campbell.
That's a nomination from Mona Davenport for Angela to serve as chair. Angela, would you be willing to serve as chair if so designated?
Wow, thanks, Mona. I thought we were friends. Yes, I can serve in that role, but if anyone else is interested, please feel free.
Okay, we have at least one nomination to serve as the chair. Is there any other individual that would step forward themselves, or would you want to nominate another person? I should have sold the opportunity better by saying that April and I will help staff the work of the committee significantly. And so April and I will do a lot of the legwork for the between meeting works of this group, but it's the facilitating of the meetings at each meeting and that would fall most heavily on the chair. Seeing no other nominations or requests to serve in that role, I'd like to ask the committee members to vote aye if you're in support of Angela serving as the chair. All those in favor, unmute and say aye.
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 And technically, I think because of open meetings, we should do a quick roll call on that. I heard a consensus, but let's make sure. So I'll call out your name and unmute and say aye or nay, either in support of or in opposition to Angela serving as chair. Mona Davenport.
Aye.
Stacey Elder.
Aye.
Claudia Jansen Daney.
Aye.
Angela Campbell.
I abstain.
She abstains. Don Holly.
Aye.
And Noor Kamasani.
Aye.
And our other member, Carlos Amaya, is not present, but that would still, with the quorum present, you, by a vote of 6-0, Angie, you've been selected, actually 5-0 with one abstention. You've been selected to serve as chair. Thank you very much for agreeing to do that. And obviously, April and I are at your disposal to help you as we go forward. If you don't mind, I'll take this meeting to the finish line. And then for all of our future meetings going forward, you'll serve in the chair. Would you demur for today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, and this is where we'll need some help from Dustin. We're going to move into the public comment segment of the meeting. I'll wait to talk about the public comment when we know our community member Jan Nickel has gotten in and can hear what we're saying. I'm assuming Jan has also been listening. Jan Nickel, I see that we've got you connecting. Once your audio connects, can you let us know that you're in? Okay. Jan has also been listening. Jan Nickel, I see that we've got you connecting. Once your audio connects, can you let us know that you're in? Okay. Jan has also been listening.
I'm in.
Okay. Jan, can you do me a favor and turn off the sound from your YouTube broadcast? Yeah, that'll help us because there was a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Before we go to public comment, Jan, I just want to talk about the public comment session. I know I've shared this information with you, but I thought I would review it with the committee as well. For our public comment sessions, we've set a 20-minute total time limit on public comment, but an individual time limit of 3 minutes per individual. And that's partly because we have committee members who have other work that's pressing coming up in the next hour. But also to encourage our public comment participants to be efficient and get directly to the points they'd like to share. And so, Jan, to preface your comments, would you please, at the beginning of your comments, share your name and tell us where you're from, and then feel free, and I'll try to monitor the time. I won't be standing over the clock and jump all over you right at the 3-minute mark, but I'll try to politely remind you if you come close to it. Thanks for joining us, Jan.
Okay.
You have the floor.
I would just like to say that I am not an alumni of Eastern. I have been on campus because my son attended there in the late 90s, early 2000. He actually lived in Douglas Hall. What is Douglas Hall without Lincoln Hall? It's like salt and pepper, bread and butter. They go together. There's a lot of negative towards Douglas now because of who he was, but Lincoln also would not have been the man he was without Douglas. And I would just like to see history remain at Eastern. Good or bad, it happened. They go together. That's all I'd like to say.
I'm sorry. I appreciate you, Jan, sharing your comment. And I appreciate you sharing your connection to EIU. Can you tell us just your hometown so that we can include that in our
Yes, I'm sorry, Mount Zion, Illinois.
Thank you very much. And obviously, you're welcome to provide public comment at future meetings and to keep track of the proceedings of the committee through our broadcasts as they go forward. But we really appreciate you taking the time today to share your perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. According to our procedures, we had no other members of the public reach out to us to make public comment at this meeting. It's possible that we could and would receive more as we move deeper into deliberations and make progress through the challenge that the president put before us. So that ends the public comment section of the meeting. Thank you, Dustin, for that. The next item on the agenda is changing topics from the Douglas question, which will, as you guys fully understand, will absorb the time and energy of this committee. But in the meantime, the committee still has to serve as the naming committee for the other naming opportunities that come before us. And I shared with you in an attachment a one-page Word document that is a proposed naming related to the Student Art Gallery that's in the Doudna Fine Arts Center. And I did not have the pleasure myself of being an in-person colleague with Glenn Hill during this time, but as you can see from the biography that I shared, the impact that he had on that art department, and then more broadly in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, was massive. And as an expression of their admiration for Glenn, both while he was alive and then after his death in 2018, Glenn's widow, his family, other friends, and colleagues from the department have been raising money to memorialize Glenn in this special way by having a student art gallery named in his honor. They have to date either donated in cash or raised $100,000 to endow a fund at the university to support that gallery, to make sure that we can keep it up to date and make improvements over time to the space. And it absolutely plays a fantastic role in the art department, both for our students to be able to display their art and for our faculty to have a place also to display art, in addition to a great platform that we already have at Tarbell. And so for those reasons, because of Glenn's legacy, because of the generosity of his family and friends, and because of the way that that space augments our students who are in the art program, it is the recommendation, and it's been proposed to this committee, that we name that space the Glenn Hild Student Art Gallery. And with that, I think I'll just open the floor to any discussion, any questions or conversation you guys want to have about this proposal. Stacey?
Can I just say that Glenn was my dean for a number of years, and he was absolutely wonderful. I don't think you can overstate how influential he was in the college and for the art department. And I think this is a really beautiful way to remember him.
Thank you. Any other comments that people would like to share? Don?
It's very impressive that $100,000 has been raised by his friends and families and colleagues. That should tell you something about his legacy and the love and support the community had for him.
Yeah, I agree. Angie, I think I saw yours on mic.
I was just going to basically state what Don shared, is that it's a resounding tribute to his honor with the amount of funds that have been raised and the accolades that have come in, to support it. It seems like a very worthwhile name for the Student Art Gallery.
Thank you, Angie. While others are waiting to see if they want to chip in, I will just describe process. If it comes to pass that this committee does indeed vote to move this proposal forward, it goes to the president. And typically by practice, the president will discuss the proposal with the president's council. And if there's the support of the president and the president's council, it would then be brought forward to the board of trustees for a vote. If this follows the typical pattern that I have seen with others in recent history, if we take action today, that would go to the PC next week, and it would likely appear on the agenda for the board of trustees at their November 13th meeting. And so that just gives you a sense of the order in which these dominoes fall if they indeed get kicked over first by this committee.
And I have a question. Where does this proposal come from? Like, what's the origin story of it? I assume that this has the support of the art department, and there's a lot of people that would support it. Give me some context for that.
Absolutely. And some of it precedes me by a couple years, because they started working on this even before my arrival in 19. I would say that if you were saying who's pushing this proposal, it's a joint effort between colleagues from the arts department and from the broader College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And in addition, some of the gift staff who work with liberal arts and sciences in cultivating donations to support various projects in the art department and more largely in liberal arts and sciences. And so it's a recognition both of the amazing impact and legacy of Glenn, but it's also a recognition that there have been a number of staff at the university, both within the advancement division and our colleagues in the academic affairs side, who've been working closely with donors to cultivate this kind of support. What I like about this particular project and this gift is one of the things we always struggle with as a university is to have a thing that starts, but to then be able to sustain it over time because of ongoing costs. And the beauty of this giving is that it's now resting in an endowment that produces a certain amount of revenue to the art department each year to sustain the gallery going forward. And I can't think of anything that would be worse than to name something the Glen Hild Art Gallery and then not have a dedicated resource that could keep it at the proper level for generations to come. So I think both on behalf of advancement and on behalf of the folks in liberal arts and sciences, and particularly in art department, who we've all worked together on approaching various people for giving, we're all kind of promoting this as the right thing to do. Any other questions or comments about the Glen Hild opportunity?
No, Ken, I just want to echo what everyone else said. Glenn was, I mean, phenomenal. I met him through Janetta, one of our, my predecessor here. And I mean, literally always willing to help, to do anything that he can when we had the Office of Minority Affairs and anything that he could do to collaborate. So I think this is well deserving. And I think it'll be an honor for us to even have this at our institution.
Thank you. Unless there's other questions or comments, I would certainly entertain a motion from a committee member to approve this proposal to the president that the art gallery be renamed the Glen Hild Student Art Gallery.
Motion to approve.
That's a motion from Claudia. Is there a second?
I second.
There's a second from Mona. We've had some discussion of the proposal up to this point, but certainly on procedure, if there's other questions or concerns or comments that folks would want to make before voting, now would be the time. Seeing no questions or comments, I'll do another roll call just to make sure we get it documented. Grab my notes. Don Holly. If you're in favor, say aye. Okay, yes. Okay.
Aye.
Claudia Jansen Daney.
Yes.
That's a yes. Angie Campbell.
Aye.
Angie Campbell votes aye. Noor Kamisani.
Yes.
Noor Kamisani votes aye. Stacey Elder.
Aye.
That's a yes vote from Stacey Elder. Mona Davenport.
Yes.
That's a yes from Mona Davenport. The proposal to vote carries in favor 6-0 with one committee member not present. I will then take the naming proposal language, and I will move that forward to the President's Council as an agenda item next week for their discussion with the President. And obviously I'll keep this group appraised at future meetings on the progress of that proposal. And I'm sure it's all of our hopes that the trustees will approve it come November 13th if the timing works out. Thank you for that. Last, and one of the items that may be the most difficult for us today, we know we have more difficult conversations ahead of us in the future, but trying to set up a frequency of meetings and a meeting time that will work for all of us. I know April had much gnashing of teeth to even try to get this time slot figured out, but if there's any recommendation or thoughts, my gut tells me that we probably need a frequency of meetings that might be every 2 weeks, but I'm certainly happy to be contradicted, or if someone wants to violently oppose that and talk about maybe a different way forward, I'm all ears. Claudia, you were unmuted. I didn't know if you had a comment about that. Okay.
No, I think that sounds fine.
Is just from, I guess, speak up if you think every 2 weeks is, I understand that that's going to be a time drain, but I also don't want to be a situation where we're running around stressed out and freaking out come March because we met monthly and we've only had 2 or 3 meetings by then. So I just think meet every 2 weeks until we get to the semester break and then jump right back into it in January. and use the time between meetings to do some of that feedback collection that's going to be necessary to really live up to the expectations that the president placed. So if we were going to meet every 2 weeks, is there a time that someone would dare to recommend as a bi-weekly meeting date and time?
And this time doesn't work for everyone?
It doesn't work for Carlos. Carlos teaches a class at 1 o'clock on Thursdays.
Can I recommend a doodle poll?
I was actually, I'm glad you said that, Stacey. I think that could be a way that we go forward, is I can have April administer a doodle poll to the group and give a broad enough group of selections. What I'll ask her to do is we'll try to shoot out a doodle poll either today still or certainly tomorrow morning, but to be looking at the week of November 2nd through 6th would be 2 weeks from now. And if maybe even spill into the week of the 9th through the 13th of November and give enough variety. And if is anybody not familiar with what a doodle poll is? Has everybody at least been part of one of those at least one time? Okay.
Do we have the sense that, I mean, rather than starting from scratch with the doodle poll, do we have a sense like a Thursday afternoon in general works for people, or do we have to start all over?
Well, I would be curious about that. I think we had some Thursday afternoons as part of the original inquiry.
AA usually meets Thursday afternoons.
Academic Council on Academic Affairs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so later in the afternoon would work. Earlier is a little tight. I actually have to leave soon
Leave from
because we're
this.
starting our meeting.
Would it be 3:30? Would be still early enough or no?
4:30 would be when I.
Okay.
Claudia,
to meet
that's every 2 weeks though, correct? So
Uh,
if we timed it right?
While CAA technically meets every week, when we don't have action items, we do cancel and collect longer.
Okay.
But there could be times where we trip over each other.
hmm
I think that, Don, we are going to have to go with a fairly broad. We'll cast the net pretty wide. The key here is we really just have that core of 7. It's important to me that the core of 7 be able to be at every meeting, and then we'll go from there.
Ken,
And just respond to that poll in a timely way if you could. Yes, Angie.
just a heads up reminder for that week of the 2nd through the 6th. The 3rd is election day, so it's
Yeah.
a holiday that we're not on campus anyway.
Yeah, we'll stay away from that one for sure. Okay, well, I think Stacey had the right idea. We could go in circles for a half hour here, getting 5 or maybe 6 that works for. We'll be better off just using the technology to make that a little more simply. Be generous with the poll and be prompt with the poll. If I could just ask those 2 concessions from you, that you drop everything and reply to it fairly quickly, and that you know, when in doubt, use yes or maybe. Only make no when it's really a no, that you couldn't move something to make it happen. And then we'll go from there. Okay, any items that you thought we should cover or would cover that we haven't, at least in this first kind of organizational meeting? I hope we didn't disappoint anybody that we didn't get into any hot and heavy Douglas conversations today, but we need to get organized first. Those will come. And obviously that's going to be shaped to some degree by the feedback. Angie, did you have another question or item?
I'm not sure, a question, maybe, but as we, obviously, as some of the word gets out about the committee members and what our charge is, individuals are going to be prepared to start sharing their comments, their feedbacks, their reaction. And I'm just wondering, as far as getting that data collection tool or a method or format in order to start collecting that, will that be a discussion of maybe our next meeting, or how do we as a group want to address that for, until we get to that point?
It's a great item. I think we do need to establish some kind of central collection document sharing that this group would be able to get to put all of that feedback, whether it's an email that comes to you or a survey that gets completed. Thank you, Claudia. I know you're stepping out now to go CAA. Thank you. but I think that's a great topic for us to talk about. Structurally, how do we want to do that? And I'm taking note of that we can try to build that into the agenda, Angie, for the next meeting. You and I can talk about how to build that agenda up. Yeah, Don.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone has ideas, and I've already forgotten how we've done it for the various search committees I've been on, but I think like Qualtrics or something like that. It would be nice to Angie's point, to have something where when people start wanting to raise this issue, to just be able to send them a link. Hey, go on here and provide it. So I think sooner rather than later to figure that out. And it'll deflect a lot of inquiries, or send them to a resource where they can feel like their voice is heard, rather than appealing to us to voice that, or to spend a lot of time listening to public comments, where it
Good
could
point.
be.
And I guess I would suggest for now is, if you get people who reach out to you in any format, make record of it. If it's in a written form, just hang on to it, save it as an email or save it as a doc, so that we can pull it together into some kind of central collection system. One of the options for public comment, by the way, that will always be open to people, is to send us written statements. Those will not be read aloud into the record of the meeting. That they'll be noted that the written comment was given to us and was shared with every member of the committee. And I do think having a central clearinghouse or central place where all of that kind of all comes together will help our work going forward. That's a great point, Angie.
I understand the president's charge of us simply deciding whether or not the name should be changed, but it's going to be very hard for people to divorce that from wanting to present from the new name, right? Because a lot of it is like, well, I don't feel comfortable making a decision without knowing where that decision leads. So I think that's going to be not just hard for the committee, because I think where a lot of us are, people are having these thoughts, but also more so for the public and others too, how you can kind of divorce those two issues. But I understand sort of the methodology there, but I just think that's going to be a reoccurring challenge.
Yeah, and I can't speak for the president, but my sense is that he thought he was protecting us from one extra complicating variable, but it switched it for a different one, which is now we'll have the uncertainty of, well, what would it be? And one could guess, but not be assured, that let's say that the recommendation from the committee was that there would be a change. There's a very real possibility that then it would ping pong back to the committee for a new exercise, which is to decide what the new name would be. And certainly if you look at the IGP on naming for the university, the president doesn't have to drop that proposal in our lap, but in his perspective on shared governance would suggest to me that there's a chance that that would happen. So, but you're right, Don. I mean, if I knew it was change but we were going to change the name to Bart Simpson Hall, I'm not sure that I'd be in favor of change in that case. I mean, it's a silly example, but it does highlight the very thought of the devil you know versus the devil you don't. Any other kind of items that weren't quite on the agenda but seem timely at this point? Okay, well, let me echo the sentiments of the president to express gratitude for you being a part of this, and I guess expressing gratitude in advance for the work we're going to do together. I'm going to do my best to support all of you as committee members. I guess the other thing I would point out is if you do get inquiries that are from press, I would highly encourage you to refer those to Josh Reinhardt, our public information officer. He is both empowered and equipped to speak on behalf of the university on various topics. And it keeps you as committee members from getting bogged down and feeling like you have to represent the view of the university. You don't. You represent the views of yourself and to some degree the constituencies that you represent. That's why this committee is made up of folks from CAA and Staff Senate and Faculty Senate and Student Senate. It's to make sure that we have representation from key shared governance partners at the university. But in terms of managing inquiries from the press, let's let Josh do that, because that's his job that he gets paid to do. And anytime I get those kind of inquiries, I certainly move those on to Josh as well. Okay, so with that, rather than take a motion to adjourn, I will just seek unanimous consent. And so please object if you would like to keep the meeting going. Otherwise, I'll assume I have unanimous consent to adjourn the meeting. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah,
Very
thank you,
courageous
Angie.
of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie.
You're my partner, Mona.
Yeah.
I know where to go for help.
You owe Mona one, Angela.
I know it. I know it.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dustin. See ya.
Have a good day.
Yeah, really appreciate your help.
No problem.
Bye.